me
Yeah.
and you.
Yeah.
Talking forever.
Yeah,
And this guy-
usually you guys just talk, right? I just play games, right? And
Yeah.
we
And then
just
this
sit
guy
about
suddenly
it.
will interject.
Yeah.
Not with a very like philosophical kind of answer, but just say you guys talking.
Yeah.
The worldview video we should have already covered. There's a few things that some of our friends have asked us and also highlighted to us as well. And one of the questions that they have brought up is, what does the term worldview mean to you personally? And when did you first become aware that you had one? So, for me, by the way, I'm Lee. Forgot to introduce myself. So for me, since I already made the 2 videos, so you already know my worldview.
Oh, that's a easy way out. Yeah.
So this is our friend Cosmic, and our friend here
Vin.
is Vin. Yes. So what do you think about this question, about this worldview? What does the term worldview mean to you personally? Let's break this into 2
Okay.
Let's break it into 2 because this is a very long question by my standard. Okay. So what does the term worldview mean to you personally?
All right. So let me take a step at this. To me, worldview is basically a lens, your personal lens, as to how you view your reality, right? So I think that is in the simple form. It's just your personal lens as to how you view your own reality. It could be anything at all. It could be any life events, the way you conduct yourself, your beliefs, your values, and all that. So what kind of lens do you use? But this, I think, this definition is more of like I would say the politically correct definition. But for me, my worldview is as simple as, on a personal level, I just want to be happy. Happiness is something that I look for at all times, and I always try to choose joy at any point of time. So that is my personal worldview. And to answer your second part of the question, right? And when did I actually realize I had a worldview? I believe that for me, I was like pretty much ignorant in the earlier part of my life. I mean, I had a lot of interest about philosophical stuff and all that, very much right from the beginning. But I guess I had a real shift in my worldview is when I had a kid, my first kid, right? I had my daughter back in 2008, and then I noticed that somehow or rather I started viewing things differently. And whatever that I planned, whatever I wanted to do, I always had to I somehow naturally will put my daughter first before anything else. And then I realized that somehow or rather my perspective and my priorities have shifted. And then I'm no longer the person. I mean, I still have my own individuality, but I sort of like moved into this space where I started putting another person's interest before mine. So then I noticed, I'm beginning to see things slightly differently than I used to before. So I guess the turning point for me would be the birth of my daughter. But at the back of my mind, I am still the same person. I'm still curious about life, the bigger life questions. But that is something that I'm learning as I progress. But a real shift happened during that point of time. And subsequent to that, of course, I had a few more big shifts. But I guess at this point, I would just like to share, I guess, the birth of my child was a big shift for me in my worldview. However, I'm also beginning to realize as I read more into this and starting to have a bit more reflections about life, I noticed that my own personal well-being is also key, and the journey that I'm on is also essential for me personally to find out the kind of truths that I want to, the kind of reality that I'm wanting to co-create. So the element now is also, my personal element has become equally as important as to how I am also conducting or the upbringing of my kids. So I guess it's a bit of a balance of both.
Okay. Let's come back to that later. We
Yeah.
can expand further on that.
Sure.
What about Vin?
Basically, a worldview, I think, is it really depends on individuals' view. So certain people, they view differently. There's a lot of subjects, a lot of things that how you view it. You know, like for example, like how you view the political view, how you view like how our government works. You know, so certain people may think that okay, our government is doing very good, for example. Which I think, okay, there's room for improvement, of course. And also, some people are confused due to the message passing around through the media. So some people, never do a fact check and so on, for example, and they jump into conclusion for example, just by reading news, and then they jump into conclusion and think, okay, this is what it is. To me, in order to have like a so-called constructed worldview, is that your work by understanding the facts, what's going on, do more research on it, so at least you can form up the so-called findings and conclusion to yourself, so understand and that's actually better for your next step, things like that.
Okay, but so the second part of the question is when did you first become aware that you even had one? Even if you do have, because there are certain elements of beliefs that that is entrenched in us, how we see the world, how we see society, and how we see stuff like family or religion, the things that we grew up with. So these are some of the elements that actually make up our psyche, that actually shape our daily thoughts and all that, which is covered in my previous video. So we never realized that this is something that will affect our future. If we continue to think like this, if we continue to frame our thoughts like this, how does this thought affect our life or our actions and our decisions in the future, this worldview? So when did you first realize that you had this worldview, this framework, which we call a worldview?
I mean, basically, we came up from the university, and then we started working, right? I don't speak to other people. Like, for example, for me, started work, you just, my mind was just concentrated on the work. I have to work hard, I have to strive for a certain position, certain salary, and then the mind was very simple, but when you get older, then you will have a different perspective. Then you started to have more questions about life. Okay, is this just about the work, go home and then you work again and meet friends, hang out? Is that it, or is there anything else that you need to explore more? And then eventually, right now, we do have a family, we have to be more, let's say, more matured in a sense of taking care of the family, and then you need to really careful with your step, your decision, you have to be very decisive, in order to be decisive, you need to be more knowledgeable. I mean, everyone makes a mistake, but you learn from it. Then before making another mistake, you better you do more research, what I said just now, fact checks and so on, understand, follow certain subjects. Like, for example, even politics, you cannot just listen, you have to do your own research. You understand from different so-called medias, parties, so you know that who is lying and who is not, right? And then you know what to do. I guess it was probably when I was maybe 25, I started to have sort of to explore further, to understand more, to gain more knowledge and understand what is right and wrong,
Yeah. By the way, I mean, this is the first time that I hear Vin talking so long.
yeah, correct. I mean, this I'm pretty sure this is not his normal mode. But
so,
also,
this is more
correct.
And I don't know, this is presentation skills.
I guess that's one, and I'm also kind of amused by his fascination around government and fact-checking. I think these two key terms he's been using. So it's quite interesting. Perhaps we can dig in deeper, deep dive on these topics.
Because normally it's me and you talking forever.
Yeah, usually you guys just talk, right? I just play games, right?
And then this guy suddenly will interject. Not with a very philosophical kind of answer, but just say you guys talking cock.
True. Oh, but it's interesting, at least to see now we are seeing his inner thoughts.
I don't know. So I understand where you come from, because what you mentioned just now, both of you, we are trying to put your perspective into view. Because I always have this fascination on you know, how when actually people in their life, it could be young or could be like when they are about to go, when they
Yeah.
are in their 70s. What is the point in their life that they realize that they need to be more like cognizant of their worldview, find their worldview at that time lah. Because most of the time it happens at the point where you have an existential crisis.
Correct.
There are some
Correct,
people-
correct.
A pivotal moment
yeah,
typically.
correct.
Yeah.
In a point of time when, let's say, there is a death in the family,
Yeah.
for example lah.
Yeah.
So or something happens to you at work, maybe you lost your job. This kind of existential periods of your life where you question your life, your reality.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the whole thing? You know,
Correct.
why are we here?
Yes.
All these kind of things.
True.
So for myself is I grew up in a religious family and in this religious family we are always taught to be dogmatic. Anything out of this bubble, anything out of this religious framework which we believe in, is considered as secular and less moral in a way. I wouldn't say immoral, but less moral in a way.
Yeah.
Because we have been taught that we shouldn't associate ourselves so much with this outside world because it will influence our thoughts and it will actually draw us out of our this religious framework, so to
Yeah.
say. So for me, there is no existential crisis that happens that actually draws me out, but more on curiosity.
Okay.
Yes. So more on curiosity in a way that as you have been exposed to certain dogma or certain a certain worldview for a long time, you kind of feel that there are certain elements of this worldview that does not answer everything.
Mm-hmm.
And either it does not answer or it cannot answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, in science, a lot of people like to, their worldview is very science oriented.
Yep.
And remember the sixth question?
Fact-based,
Yes,
right?
very fact-based. And remember the sixth question in the Worldview video which I brought up?
I vaguely remember.
You vaguely remember. Me too, me too.
Except the question why we are here. Yeah, that always.
Yeah, me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
Can be yourself.
What's the nature of your reality? And then secondly is that what do you believe about the origin of the universe? Where does the universe come from?
Yeah.
And then the third one is where do you think the universe is going? What is our future?
Yeah.
Where are we going collectively? Not just as in our individual journey, but in a sense,
Collective.
the entire universe. Where is it heading? Science only probably can answer these first three questions.
Yeah.
Answer in a way, but not necessarily concretely lah.
Correct.
But the following three questions, what is good and evil, what is true and false, the last three are possibly not be able to be answered concretely by science also.
Correct.
Right, not because science does not deal with morality, does not deal with what is good and bad.
Yeah.
They only tell you the how, but they don't tell you the why.
Right.
I think one point I want to address is that like certain people like how will people actually construct their worldview, right? Especially in the first place. So I think, again, it's very subjective. Like you just
Yep.
want to work,
Correct.
earn money, go
Correct.
home, simple life.
Yeah.
I think we have to really what do you call that? So-called change our mindset a little
Yeah.
bit to be better,
Right.
because you cannot just work and learn everything from work, let's put it this way. And nowadays, like technology is so rich, it's easier for you to actually to gain more knowledge, to understand more.
I would also like to add, I think, if I may zoom out a bit from the discussion, just purely focusing on the word worldview, right? I'm pretty sure I can say that maybe more than 80 to 90% of the human population are not even aware of such a term, even I think, worldview. They could have heard about worldview somewhere around, but no thought was actually given to that. And so we are starting this is also part of creating the awareness around the more broader questions to life, right? So I think this is a good start. So by us putting this kind of content out there, I think it also brings about the awareness, depending whoever comes across this video, right? And another thing that I would also like to add, worldview, either on a personal level or a collective level, will keep shifting based on the experiences that you go through, right? Assuming like the first phase of our lives, because I think our worldview is predominantly set by I would call it the life template, right? So we are born and we go to school, That is one phase of our life. And then we go into the working world. We work for our career. Maybe we collect certain material gains and all that is one view. And then perhaps if you are interested to have a life partner, and then it's another stage of the worldview. When you have kids, it's another round. And then you gain certain maturity, you have another worldview. So I think worldview is also something that keeps shifting. You do not have to put a pin in it and say this is my worldview, because worldview will keep shifting depending on your experiences. But however, there will be a core worldview within each and every soul, which I think will be something that will be guiding you as you journey on your personal journeys. So to say that a worldview is in a certain way, I think it is not so proper. It is a broad concept, but it's just, if I may just zoom out even further by saying that it's just a lens. So you're using this lens to sort of like, just like photography, right? I mean, being a bit nerdy here. If you have a wide lens, you see in a broader view. And then if you have a telephoto lens, you're going to zoom in and just look at a particular event and then form a view around that. Yeah, so worldview is just something like that, depending on the situation, depending on how you perceive certain events. So that will be keep shifting. But me personally, I'm glad that now we as a team, we want to create some awareness around this kind of topics, and I hope it will catch on and more people will be interested. As even now I can see that ever since COVID happened, I think people are beginning to ask those tougher questions that were not previously asked. Maybe in your mind, you have that inkling, I may have these questions to ask, but nobody really challenged themselves to say it. But now I think since the COVID, it sort of shifted the whole trajectory of our worldview. So I think that was one pivotal moment on a collective level, I think, which sort of like shifted a lot of things for everyone.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Actually, I think you brought up one very crucial point when you talk about using a lens, then you see different things, right?
Right.
So this is very important because because every human is built differently, right? So some people actually they have some so-called I would say maybe gift, or they can see the view different from you. Even like, for example, you when you look at certain objects, right? You see differently.
Yeah.
You know, some people maybe they perceive things more than you. So that part is really different, right? The very first step, which is very important, is that you always step out and try to look things out of the box and holistically. You know, yeah, I think that's very important. At least you need to have form like a first step to have this kind of mentality. Always look out of the box. You know, it is methodology, right? So you apply that concept, you know, and then you try to view wider, you know.
Yeah, true lah. But the question remains lah, because what you all say is correct lah, in a way that because everybody actually definitely has a worldview. They just don't realize it.
Correct.
And the worldview is shaped by their
experience.
In a way that during that time during your school days, this is your worldview.
Yeah.
During your working life, your worldview evolves.
Yeah.
It changes until when you have children. It changes when you are old and your children are all grown already. Then it's a different worldview. But that is about everybody has a worldview. That is a given fact lah.
Yeah.
Nobody has no worldview lah. Otherwise, they'll be dead lah, because they'll be not taking it off. Why is it important to broaden it? Because nobody actually will sit down suddenly one fine day while they're drinking coffee and think what is the nature of reality.
For sure.
And then where does the universe come from? Like that. Unless
I still do it. I do it at times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless some people might do it after they watch a movie like Interstellar.
Correct.
Interstellar was wow, the universe is like that. Black holes lah. Then they go back in time lah. Then after that, how come time works differently in different planets with different gravity lah? So then after that, if you're curious, you will go and find out. Then what you find out along the way, right, may not be the ultimate truth or may not be the actual reality, but at least it sets you on a path.
Yeah. And I guess again, this boils down to the same earlier point that we made, that typically there is a pivotal moment that you will consider different things in your life. If your life, you're in a comfort zone, you are just like droning away in your life and everything is routine, it's rarely that you come across a point where you will suddenly ponder about worldview. So it has to have like a pivotal moment, whether we believe it or not. I think that is the key moment. So whether it's on a global level, on a personal level, you will go through that. But just let me put it as simple as this. I mean, when I was young, I used to think, even as a teenager, I used to think, why are we here? I mean, does nobody talk about it or think
Can
about
answer.
it? And there's hardly any conversations around topics like this. I mean, I was just wondering, how do we actually land on this planet out of the blue, and then suddenly we have this whole civilization here? Aren't there like other living beings out there potentially? And as a teenager, this sort of these kind of questions played quite a bit in my mind, and so that curiosity naturally made me read a bit more, right? So, and ancient civilizations was a key area that I was always interested in. Egypt, Atlantis, stuff like that. So I know sometimes for some people these are like, like Atlantis, is that a myth or legend, or is it a real thing? But to me it sparked the curiosity. What if there really is or was an Atlantis civilization who was so much advanced than what we are at this point, right? So that sort of triggered me into this, what people call going down the rabbit hole. So yeah, so I've been going and traveling and traversing this rabbit hole for quite some time, and that brought about a lot of questions, even more questions than answers, because it's not typically easily answered. There's no definitive answer for sure. And even if you watch movies around extraterrestrials, for example, right, or civilizations out there, they are not exactly definitive. It's somewhat suggestive. So yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, but you need to start thinking these bigger questions. You need to have these thoughts around that. What if we are not alone? Just for example, like that. I mean, I know for some people this is like a crazy question, but just entertain the thought. What if? And then you will start seeing things in a broader perspective. And like I think, as I brought up the lens, whether we watch using a wide lens or a sort of like a telephoto lens to zoom in a certain matter, right? So I was just thinking the point that he made is important as to how people perceive situations. We might be seeing a movie, for example, three of us, right? The same movie together, but then we can all form different opinions about it, and we all perceive it very differently. Maybe, like in some cases, we might see it on a very philosophical level, and some look it on a more sort of like grounded view of what the movie is all about. So it's all about that, and to have a single view is good because that reflects who you are as an individual. But then if you zoom out a bit and consider some other perspective viewpoints, that will give you a more enriching sort of a viewpoint of a particular event.
Yeah, I think sometimes also requires a teamwork to find out things that after you like watch this movie, you have this so-called this concept about this movie, and then when you share with your friends, the right people, maybe they give you like certain key points about what you think, and then probably that will form another idea, in you. So I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, key point there that bouncing ideas with your buddies. As much as you think that you are like alike, but you'll be so surprised that your internal viewpoints can be so diverse, right? So by considering being open about it rather than being judgmental, be open about it and see potentially there may be other perspectives that I need to consider about a particular situation. And once you go into that particular mode, you're always going to perceive things a bit differently. You'll be looking the hidden meaning behind this and stuff like that, rather than the literal meaning of a particular event.
Right? Correct. There's this saying which I always like to use. Sometimes we know just enough to know that we are right, but not enough to know that we are wrong.
Correct.
Right? You understand what this means?
Yes.
Right? Because our level of knowledge is up to a certain point, because it is always affirmative kind of knowledge towards our own idea, that we feel that we already know enough to know that this is reality, this is the truth, we are right. But we do not know the probably 10 miles of information at the back that we do not know of that proves our theory wrong.
Correct.
So which is a nice segue to what I'm going to ask right now.
Oh,
do you think,
so there are more questions?
How many questions?
I'm looking like we went on for quite a bit. I think why not entertain another one or two more questions since we are quite like warmed up right now, right?
Correct. I think during our warm up session just now it was like 3 hours, right?
Yeah, I guess so. If we could have recorded that, this could have been a series of episodes.
So coming back, so the segue to this, or what we can do is this is a segue, then we go into the commercials. So people like to ask a question and then we'll come back to that. After the commercials.
Sure.
So my question is knowledge important,
Yeah.
right? For you to gain clarity on your worldview or not. Let me reframe that.
Sure.
So means that when we try to expand our worldview, do we need to read a lot?
Okay.
Do we need to read a lot? Do we need to study a lot in order to expand our worldview?
Yep. Okay, let me answer that. The answer is yes and no also, right? I mean, gaining more knowledge always helps. It's never a bad thing. The more you read, the more you know about the world, the more viewpoints you consider, right? And typically, even at this moment in our world, if you are knowledgeable and if your discussion points are rich and broad, you are perceived to be someone who is like good and knowledgeable per se, right? So to me, that is important as your basis, as your baseline, right? So you need to have that as a foundational level. But I guess what takes you to the next level is life experience. So when you try to marry your knowledge, marry or merge or whatever you want to call it, you merge your knowledge and your life experiences. I think that is where it will take you to your next level of your evolution, your personal journeys and all that. It's definitely reading is good, but experiential learning is also another key area that I think it will help you to form a much well-rounded viewpoint.
Let me expand a little bit on my question just now.
Sure.
I was talking about whether you need to read a lot or study a lot to gain clarity, to expand your worldview. Why? The reason why I'm asking this question is that because sometimes you want to find out more. Like suddenly you watch this movie and you wanted to know more about this concept, right?
Correct.
Like why does people believe in evolution and all that? So I want to study on evolution, but the book is so thick.
Yep.
Charles Darwin's book is so thick. so normally, especially in our prevalent culture right now, in this era, one of the dominant media, consumption of media, the method is shorts, like TikTok and all that, right?
Yeah.
So our attention span is probably about 3 minutes.
Correct. Or
At most, probably 1 to 3 minutes. Even some YouTube videos like what we do are like 10 minutes, 11 minutes long, right? Probably people will not watch in its entirety because people do not have that kind of attention to shift through a 10-minute video. Probably my attention span is 40 seconds to a minute.
Yeah.
So if you want me to go and find out more, even though I am curious, right? A bit lazy leh.
Correct.
So that's why I say, is it really I must go the hard way, must take the long road to go and study?
I believe what you have just mentioned is also touching on in the areas of platforms of learning, I guess, right? So the traditional way of learning is through books, thick books, thin books, or whatever you want to call it. But now I guess with the advent of technology, then we have many more platforms. Social media is one of them. I think I've learned quite a lot from social media. In fact, a lot from YouTube. So I think learning can be on a visual way or just a reading, or depending what suits you the most. But I think you should not limit yourself to just one way of doing it, and do not discourage if a concept that you are curious about and all the books relating to that are so thick. Do not be discouraged, because you can always find in a shorter form of understanding or a more condensed version through social media. So I think that is one. But I think while we were talking about this, one thought came to mind is also when you said, is knowledge important? I think it's important, but also what came to my mind was like, that knowledge that is being shared is stemming from people's own experiences, their worldviews in fact. So knowledge to me is a collection of worldviews, if I see it, right? So that is one portion for you to perhaps get started, but then the next level to that is your own experiential learning. So you add on to that knowledge with your own learning and forming your own worldview. So I think collectively that's how I see it, because maybe just reading books can be very liberating and very restrictive at the same time, because it's just that, and that is someone's worldview, or maybe accepted collectively or on a personal level. But then your own life, your own journey might bring about some different elements which you have not experienced through reading or whatever. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
It makes very good sense.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. One thing also, while you're like trying to gain more knowledge by, for example, reading books, reading online and all that, right? So I think also very important that you don't read blindly.
Yeah.
right? So you always need to have some common sense, so that you won't actually get misled by all this information. Yeah. So of course, there are a couple of ways to do that, but you need to have this kind of so-called mindset, a basic mindset, what is actually you think is right. You have to maybe cross-check with different references, and then you see it for yourself, and then you ask yourself back the question: is this right or not?
Yep. Yeah. So speaking of that, I got something to confess to the both of you.
Oh my God! I hope it's safe for the audience.
Yeah, it is safe. It is safe. Because I wouldn't tell the both of you the same thing, this whole log chat thing, this whole log chat thing, is just a very elaborate scheme to get all of us reading. Alright, so thank you very much for watching. I'm Lee.
I'm Cosmic.
I've been.
Alright, see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.